Hello everyone. In this video I am going to discuss how to disable random variables and constraints during randomizations. So if we see disabling random variables rand mode. In some cases we want to in few test cases we want to disable or inactive few random variables by using some inbuilt functions. If we see here rand mode method can be used to control whether a random variable is active or inactive. By using this rand mode method we will control the random variables. So we'll set as active or inactive. All inactive variables are not randomized by randomized method. All random variables are initially active. If we see, if we be using this rand mode, we can make it some random variables as a inactive. So in that case, randomization method won't assign random values to those random variables. That means that random variables are not randomized whenever that random variable is inactive random variable. So see in this example, so this is the syntax for make it the random variable is active or inactive. It's a object handle and a variable name. A rand mode, it is an inbuilt function, and this is enable. So see the example, pkt dot, this is a handle, this is the address is the random variable name, and rand mode 0. If it is 0, the randomization is disabled. So now that corresponding random variable is a inactive random variable. If it is 1, then corresponding the random variable is active random variable. Now if you want to make it disable all random variables in that corresponding class or in that object, then we'll use object handle dot rand mode of 0. So if invoke this rand mode method pkd dot rand mode 0, then all the variables, especially the random variables in that object, are disabled. All variables are inactive. In that case, the randomization method is not randomized those inactive random variables. So not only that, the random mode returns the current active state of the specified random variables. If returns 1 if the variable is active, or 0 if the variable is inactive. Not only set that variable is active or inactive, this rand mode function also returns the state of active state of that specified random variables. Now see some examples. Inactive variables are not randomized by the randomization method and their values treated as the state variables by the solver. If those are inactive random variables, then the randomized method won't assign the random values, then the solver treat as the normal state variables. Now see some examples to understand how these inbuilt rand mode method will works. So in this example, I define one class packet having the two random variables address and data of byte type, and creating one module rand methods initial begin and declaring some handle, so pkt of type packet, creating instance of packet or object of that class packet. Now I have to packet, this is handler, object handle, and the address, this is a one random variable. So here this class contains the two variables address and data. I am disabling only one random variable, that to address. So packet dot, this is the object handle dot this random variable address and rand mode 0. If it is 0, then I'll make this address random variable as a inactive random variable. I'm disabling the randomization. So whenever if I randomize it, pk dot randomize, so even though this packet contains two random variables, we are disabling this address variable, so it generate only random values for this data. Now this address acts as a normal state variable. Now here just I randomize this packet, use packet. Now pkt dot randomize, I'm randomizing this object to, I'm displaying the data as well as the address values. So pkt dot address and pkt dot, I'm just displaying those values after randomization, and also I'm trying to return what is the active state of those random variables by using this pkt dot address dot rand mode. It returns active state of this address. In this example, we make it inactive by using this address dot rand mode, so it returns 0. So pkt dot rand mode, so all random variables initially are active random variable. So here this, if I invoke this method, it returns 1. We see the output of this program. Now address value is 0, data is -71. Now after randomizing this packet, after randomizing this object, it contains 2 random variables, but address random variable disabled by using this. So now it acts as a state variable, means the default values of byte type. Byte is nothing but it is an signed 8-bit integer. So the range is -128 to 127. So now the default values of byte type is 0. Now address is 0 because it acts as a normal state variable. We are disabling that randomization by using this rand mode method. So whereas the data is a random variable in this class, after randomization I am getting a some value -71. It in the range -128 to 127. I am trying to return that this rand mode value is 0 because it is a disabled one already. So all random variables are active default initially, so it returns 1. So by this we can understand how to disable a particular random variable by using rand mode. And we'll see some example, right? Disabling all random variables in the object. We can disable or we can make it all random variables are inactive. So see in this example, I define one packet class, so having 2 random variables, address and data, byte type. So I'm create one modules, rand methods. So initial begin, I'm declaring one handle, pkt variable type of packet, and also I'm creating object of packet class. Now I'm displaying before randomization. So what it returns, actually I'm displaying packet dot address dot rand mode, packet dot data dot rand mode. It default all random variables are active random variables. This method returns 1 because these 2 variables are active. Now I'm pkt dot rand mode 0. So what is that? Pkt is the object handle. By using this object handle, I am disabling all random variables in the corresponding objects. So object handle dot rand mode 0. So earlier in the previous example, we'll disable only particular random variable. Here we are disabling all random variable in the object. Next I randomize this pkt dot randomize. Now I'm displaying those values, address and data. After that I'm trying to print the rand mode of both address and data variable. If you see the output, so initially here see this output here in display before randomization. So the rand mode of both address and data equal to 1 because all random variable initially are active random variables. So if I invoke this rand mode, definitely it returns 1. Then I'll make it pkt dot rand mode 0. Okay, then I'm randomizing. Now I'm displaying those values. So now in that case, whenever if I do randomization, pkt dot randomization, so all the random variables in this object were inactive. So now the solver treat all these random variable as a normal state variable. Both are byte type, so the default value is 0. It print 0, data is 0, address is 0. Then later I'll try to print that active state of those random variable by using these rand mode methods. So now I make disable all by using this pkt dot randomize, so it returns 0 for both address as well as the data. So by this example we can understand so how to disable all random variable in the particular object by using that rand mode method. Now see one more example. So rand mode returns the current active state of specified random variable. You see in this example, same like, so I'm defining one packet having 2 variables, address and data is a rand type, whereas in the address is a logic type. In the previous example the address is a byte type. So in that case, so what will be the default value? So if it is a logic, what is the default value? So logic is a 4 state variable data type, so it default value is x, whereas the byte is the 2 state data types, so the default value is 0. Now we'll see. So now I'll create one model, rand methods, initial begin, so declaring a handle and creating object of class packet, and I'm displaying both active state of those random variables. Anyway it display both 1 for address and data. The rand mode gives as a 1 because initially all the random variables are active random variables. Now pkt dot rand mode 0. Now I'm disabling all the random variables in this package by using object handle object handle dot rand mode 0 means whatever the random variable in this object are disabled or inactive. Now even though if I randomize this object pkt dot randomize, so that randomization method won't give a random values to these random variables. That solver treat as a normal state variable. If I try to print this address and data after randomization, we'll see. So it returns only the default values, I think for logic x and byte 0. Now and later I'll display, try to print the active state of both address and data. See the output for this program. So initially in this display, so this rand mode of both address and data equal to 1, because initially all are active random variable. Then later then I make it disable, then I randomize, so that address is x because it's the logic type, so it is not a random variable, it is inactive random variable. Now x is a normal state variable, so address is x whereas data is 0 because it is a byte type. Then later I'll return the mode of active state of those random variable, it returns as 0 because all random variables in the object are disabled by using pkt.randomize. So by which we understand how to disable or enable a particular random variable, all random variable in the given object. So now we can enable, once again if you want you can enable this random variable by using packet dot address dot the random variable dot rand mode and 1. The argument is 1. So now next we will see same way how to disable, how to control, how to enable or disable, how to make it active or inactive constraints in a randomization. So by using some inbuilt method, constraint mode. Here the constraint mode method can be used to control whether a constraint is active or inactive. Sometimes, so for example, that class may contain several constraints. In some cases, in some tests, we want to we need only few constraints. We want to disable few constraints during randomization. So we can achieve that by using this constraint mode method. Now when a constraint is inactive, it is not considered by randomization method like a inactive random variable. So the constraint is inactive, then the randomized method won't consider that constraint. All constraints are initially active like a random variable also, right? Now see, this is the syntax how to make enable disable a particular constraint. So this is object handle, constraint block name and constraint mode enable. So here is simple example. This is a object handle pkt dot data range is a constraint identifier and the constraint mode of 0. Here 0 means constraint block is disabled. Here 1 means the constraint block is enabled. So see some examples. Now here class package having one random variable data bit type 3 down to 0 and I am defining one constraint data range. So what is the data inside 2, 4? I will explain what is inside operator actually. In the coming lecture I will discuss each and every topic in the randomization. So as of now this data, this random variable inside 2, 4, the data equal to 2 or data equal to 4. So these 2 and 4 are equally probability. The data may get 2 or 4 equally probability, right? So now I'll create one model, static construct, initial begin, declaring a handle and creating an object. So before constraint I'm displaying before constraint disable what is the constraint mode. So pkt dot range data range dot constraint mode. Anyway, the default initially all constraints are active. Whenever if I invoke this method constraint name dot constraint mode, then it returns 1. So the data range dot constraint mode gives 1. Then I'll randomize this pkt dot randomize. Then after that I'm displaying those values, okay, data packet dot. Then I'm disabling that constraint data range by using this object handle pkt dot data range dot constraint mode 0. Now here I'm before that I'm return that constraint mode, the active state of that constraint and also the value of that. After that then I'm disabling. Clear? Then I'm printing after disabling constraint, then constraint mode and that it returns the constraint mode means active state of that constraint and once again I'm randomizing. So in that case what will be the data? We'll see in the outputs. So now here before constraint disable, The constraint mode, it returns 1 because initially all constraints are active, so it returns 1. Then data equal to 4. So the constraint is valid. So the randomization generate a random values in such a way that it satisfies that constraint in the class. Now here what is the constraint? Data should be either equal to 2 or equal to 4. Now before make it disable, just I randomize it, then I print the value, the data equal to 4. Now next, after disabling, after constraint disable, then constraint mode. So what did constraint mode? pkt dot data range dot constraint mode returns 1 because I disable that data range constraint by using pkt dot data range dot constraint mode. Now it returns 1. Now if I try to randomize, so what is the value we get? Okay, it acts as a normal state variable, right? Anyway, so now what is the range here? 3 down to 0. Now 0 to 15. So the data may get between 0 to 15. It won't applicable this constraint. So that randomization method generate a random value for this data, but it is not apply this constraint. So we get data equal to 14. So I discussed how to enable or disable a particular random variable or all random variables in the object, and also how to make active or inactive constraints during randomization process with some suitable example. Thank you.